Hello everyone, welcome to another live hangout here at Voice Essentials. So good to have you. My name is Dr. Dan, for those of you who don't know me, but of course I think many of you do by now. So good to be hanging out with you for what is our first official Q&A for the year. If you are new to the channel and to our live hangouts, we do these every Monday. So I'm in Australia, Brisbane, Australia. So we do these every Monday at 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. So check your clock right now, check your watch to see what time it is in your part of the world to make sure that you kind of know when we're going to be doing this, because we do it every week. And another way that you can be reminded that we're going live is to subscribe to the channel, Dr. Dan's Voice Essentials, hit the white bell icon, and then YouTube will notify you of our live shows. We do some really cool things here. We don't just do Q&A, though, you know, we have such a great time on the Q&A answering your questions to the best of my ability. We, of course, also have internationally renowned and respected guests come on the show, and we do that every few weeks. Next week, we've got Michelle Marquardt DeVoe. She's coming. She's from the Speakeasy Cooperative. She's been on the show like so many times before, and I love getting Michelle on the show because she's not only incredibly knowledgeable about the voice and about teaching voice, and is a really highly respected teacher internationally, but she's also a scream. She's a lot of fun. So I like to get her on as our first guest each year because it kicks us off in the right direction. That's next week. This week, what we're doing is the Q&A. But before we do, let me just quickly go through a few things. I wanted to let you know that my new look website, so we've got two websites. So the one that many of you be aware of is the one that's sort of going across the bottom of the screen. That's the voiceessentials.com.au site. That's where you can enroll with all of my online courses, which incidentally, all of those prices, I've been revising my pricing, and the prices we're going up in March. So if you want to grab yourself a bargain before the prices go up in March, make sure you do that straight away. You know, jump onto the site. There is links in the description section below of this video for you to do that. But I also have another site, which is actually my original site, which has always still been live, the djarts.com.au, djarts.com.au. That link is also in the description section of this video. And that's my private singing teaching site. And that site's been up and live since 2000 and who knows what. So it had been about, it was 2013 when we did the last major sort of upgrade. And so it was time, it was time to do it, give it another new facelift. So I'd love for you to go and check it out. Let me know what you think. We've kind of, you know when you live in a space for a long time and things become a bit cluttered, you kind of collect. Well, websites have that same deal, right? We kind of collect text, and anyway, we've cleaned it out, given it a new fresh look, bit of a spring clean at the height of summer. So hopefully you'll approve in your own time. Go and check that out. Maybe wait until after the video. Also, just wanted to remind you all of the Facebook community. So the Voice Essentials community Facebook group. Again, there's links in the description section below this video. Want to throw out an invitation to those of you who perhaps are not part of the show. I'm just looking down here at my thing. I'm hoping. So for those of you who have been part of our online shows for any length of time, you would know that we've had technical issues at the end of last year. Last week went off without a hitch. Linda, I'm just double checking that we've got everything right as far as Linda. Give me a write in the chat to let me know that everything's going well with the audio and the video I'm pretty sure it'll be okay, but anywho, so all good today. Thank you, Linda. I get so nervous about the tech. You know, there's a reason why more people aren't doing this, and it's because the technical side of things is really hard to manage. I always feel like I'm wrangling an alligator every time I step in to do this show. Anywho, so yeah, if you're not already a part of the Facebook community group, the Voice Essentials community Facebook group, got to get that right, we would love for you to participate. Of course, it's free to join. It's where over 1,000 of us now gather and comment and encourage. What I love about our community is we are an encouraging group, not to the point of being dishonest, you know, but we always frame our feedback and encouragement and really spur each other on to the development of our voice. And we're all approaching this voice thing at different levels. And for example, I saw a colleague, Ingrid James. She was on the show last year. Some of you might have caught that show. She joined the Facebook group this morning, and I was thrilled to see, you know, Ingrid is a highly accomplished jazz singer, jazz vocal teacher. She's amazing. So we've got everyone from the Ingrids right through to absolute beginners in the group, and we all together come into that community group with just a great sense of community. And yeah, so we'd love for you to be a part of that if you like. I think that's it. We want to get into the chat today and answer your questions. Can I just remind us? Actually, I'll do that. I'll throw out the reminder of how this whole live Q&A works. Kind of. Let me get over to here. Kind of straight after this. Oh, no, we don't want to do that one. We want to do this one. Okay, so let's dive in. I'll double check that my sound's all working properly. So the way we want to do our Q&As, and this is how we do them, is as you know, many of you would know that there is a super chat function within this whole process. If you want to go to the top of the list and have your question answered, we always prioritize super chat questions. People who had to throw a few little dollars into their question, and we prioritize that. So if you absolutely have your question answered today, then the super chat function is the way to do that. Other than that, what we do is we just work through the questions chronologically. We've already got 7 questions ready to go, and so we're going to dive into those right now. And 7 questions might be all that we get done. So if you want your question answered, a super chat might be the way to do it today. But anyway, let's dive in. And again, I answer your questions to the best of my ability. If I don't know the answer, I won't try and make it up on the spot. One of the things that we really value here at Voice Essentials is I am actually a singing teacher. I didn't just discover that I could jump onto YouTube and call myself such. I have a doctorate in teaching and learning, and specifically focused on the development of singing, and have master's degree and all those sorts of things. So this is what I do. I spent this morning teaching voice with students here in the studio and online, but that all being said, I don't know it all. I've got 26 years of experience, and I am still constantly learning. There is just so much to know about the voice, and so much that we yet don't know, and things that we're discovering. And in fact, there's a question sitting in there, from Daniel about vibrato, which we'll hopefully get to. You know, that's one area that we still are learning so much about, and so we'll come to that in a moment. So again, I do my best to answer your questions. Okay, so let's dive in. So Alternative Maple has got a question here. How to know if I am a good singer? And And Alternative Maple has made this next comment that says, I do not sing from my throat. And those, when I hear those two connected together, Alternative Maple, I immediately thought, and in fact I saw your question in the live chat before we actually started the show, so I quickly went and grabbed this book. I'm always reading. In fact, I felt like I didn't do enough reading last year, and so this year I'm really getting back into my textbook reading and journal reading and really investing into that area of my own professional development. And this is a book that I have read before, but as you can see, this is the 4th edition. I think the last edition that I read was, I don't know, maybe the 2nd. So I'm reading it cover to cover again, and it's fabulous. Like, it's brilliant. And a big part of this book is about, so this is what every singer needs to know about the body. And a big part of the drive behind this book is the development of a mind map, a body map, yeah? And it's so important that we understand our instrument. One of the challenges facing us as singers is the very fact that we are our instrument. You know, unlike a guitar or a keyboard where it sits external to us, and not sort of trying to suggest that, you know, instruments, for example, like keyboards, can be incredibly complex and they're very difficult to learn to play. But one of their advantages when we're learning them is that they sit external to them. And every time you come to playing that instrument, all things being equal, it will be the same every time you approach it. That is not the case when it comes to learning to sing. Your biological instrument is not only changing over time, so it's, you know, as you age, as you grow, and all those sorts of things, it's also changing from day to day. You know, it's impacted by how much sleep you had, and whether you've got a cold or whether you're in good health, or you get the picture. You know, what you ate yesterday can have an impact on how your voice feels today. So the challenge of working with our biological instrument is very high. Now, so what we want to do is make sure that we have a really clear map, mind map, a body map of where everything is and what it does and how it works. So for example, let me bring you over to my charts here. I'm going to jump over here. So when we I mean, this is the instrument, right? So all of this is your instrument. Not some of it, not just this bit here, not just the larynx, not just the head, the shoulders up. No, all of this is the instrument. Every part of this instrument is going to interplay itself upon how your voice works. And when we approach the voice, so for example, Alternative Maple, you made the comment, you know, I don't sing from my throat. Actually, you kind of do, in the sense that your larynx is situated within your neck, yeah? And then as your sound is created by the vocal folds and it travels up and through your vocal tract, through the throat, the sound is developed and formed, and then it exits the lips and the nostrils and travels into the big bad world outside. That is your voice. So in one sense, you do sing from your throat. In fact, all of us sing from our throats. And so sometimes it's really helpful to work with our rhetoric, the way we speak about our voice, because it's important that what we say lines up with the physiology of our voice. And we're going to do some more work next week. Let me come back over here. When I have Michelle onto the show, next week, where the show is going to be talking about the psychology of our singing. And so I'm hoping you'll all be able to join us, because so much of what we do as singers, not only on a motor cortex driven level, but also about how we think about ourselves as singers, and all of that adds up to the, to the success of how our voice goes. So I've just seen Mr. Formiati's comment there. He's just signed up for, I saw that this morning, Mr. Formiati. I'm looking forward to our lesson together, our private lesson. That'll be good fun. So back to alternative maple. You do sing from your throat, but I dare say what you're saying is you don't want to feel like you're singing back in the throat. And so the question you then go to is, how do I know if I'm a good singer? Well, the word good is really relative in amongst that. And, often we create a standard that sort of says, good, it's hard to know what your standard of good is. That your standard of good might be, Beyonce. It might be, whatever, I don't know. You can see that the width of good can be classified it's quite wide. The challenge of developing as a singer is that we are all on the path of learning to realize the full potential of our own singing voice. When you visit the Voice Essentials online courses and my sites and all that sort of stuff, and in fact, even on my About page on the voiceessentials.com.au, I actually have a little comment where I make mention of the fact that I didn't create Voice Essentials to make people celebrities. This is not about, celebrity voices. I'm not about, making the next Beyonce. If you're all about, fame and fortune, I'm happy to work with you, but equally, I may not be the best person for you to work with, because my shtick is not, I'm not orientated, at fame and fortune. What I'm orientated at is seeing you develop as a singer, but also as a human being, seeing your voice realize its full potential, not so that you can, certainly if you're a professional singer and you're working with me, I very much get the fact that you need to earn dollar from your voice. Absolutely. But it's all about making sure that we've got everything lined up in the right order of priority. And I'm really very much about seeing you develop as a human being as much as I am seeing you develop as a singer. And those two, for people who want to sing, are so closely intertwined. And I think we're going to spend a bit more time talking about that next week with Michelle. So don't forget to tune into that. So how to know if you're a good singer? Alternative maple, it's identifying what is your qualification of the word good, and then starting to obtain feedback from self-recording. We've got wonderful devices called mobile phones now that all are walking recording devices, not just audio but video, so you can record yourself, but also getting feedback from family and friends, trusted people who can give you some feedback. And then when that feels like it's good, you can start to go to things like open mic nights and those sorts of things, and start to kind of see where you're at in that developmental process. But all with a view, certainly my approach is that we do it all with a view that we want to see our progress not as a aiming at an end product, because the development of your voice is lifelong. So if you approach it more as process over product, then I think you'll find the journey a little bit easier going. Mackenzie Kate has asked how to practice and what to practice when your voice isn't well. Mackenzie, there are some things that you can practice when your voice is not well to the point at which you should not be singing. I have a number of videos on the channel that, for those of you who may not have seen them before, jump across to the channel. if you go to the search function and just type in sick, often that will get you 3 or 4 videos where I talk about singing while you're sick. So Mackenzie, let's say that you are wanting to practice when you shouldn't be singing. So one thing that you can be doing for practice is you can be doing research. So let's say you're working on a song, and the song, you could jump onto YouTube and type in the name of your song, and maybe go looking for various different performances, recordings of those songs. Every person you hear do it is going to have something different. They're going to do a different take on it. There'll be something, that you'll be able to go, oh wow, I love the way the person phrased that, or that's a different musical approach to that piece, and it gives you performance ideas. If you're a person that takes notes, you might want to note that down so that when you then go to practicing it, when your voice is in better health and you come to practicing that song again, then you're going to be able to implement that into your own practice. That's one way. That's one thing that you can be doing. I don't think we do enough of that, quite frankly. I don't think we spend enough time building into the subtext of our singing. And more often than not, building into the subtext of our singing, the narrative, doesn't require more singing from you. It requires a little bit more thought. It requires you to really delve deep into what is it that this song is trying to say. And so, it can be a really good thing for you to take the time out to actually, do that research. So that's one thing you can do. Another thing you can do is to do silent practice. So do learning lyrics. So you could, if you're learning your lyrics, you could just write the lyrics out. You could type them out. You can turn a backing track on, or if you're self-accompanying, play the song and sing the song in your mind. Don't phonate, don't create sound, but actually, maybe even with your eyes closed, practice the song just quietly inside your own head. And so there are many things that you can be doing that is practice, that is time well spent, that does not require you to be phonating. You could buy yourself a good textbook. You could spend time, dedicate that textbook. Okay, on the days where my voice is not feeling up to practice, whether it's be fatigue or because you're sick, maybe you dedicate yourself to reading a really good quality text. And so there's some ideas for you, Mackenzie, I think you'll find helpful. Daniel Cummings has asked a question: how do you learn vibrato? And it's interesting. This subject is fraught with it's an interesting subject, Daniel, because there is still, I don't know that we would qualify it as debate within the singing teaching community and voice science, voice research community. I don't know that we'd qualify it as debate around vibrato. In fact, I'm reading another textbook at the moment, The Vocal Athlete, the second edition. Again, I've read the first edition in the past, but while I'm reading this, I'm reading the second edition of Vocal Athlete. And in fact, last week in my reading, I got to a section where they're talking about, there's 2 authors, both of whom we've had here on the show, but Wendy LeBourne's writing this section, and she gets to this section on vibrato. And I've got to say, every time I reach this subject, my heart flutters a bit when I have heart palpitations, because I get concerned that, suddenly the information has been updated and some of my learning materials are out of date. But sure enough, in this most recent, and it's only come out in the last 12 months, again, Wendy and Marcy have released this text around vibrato, and they even stop short of really outlining how vibrato is created. We don't yet fully understand exactly how it is created. Now, I have within Voice Essentials 3, I have an exercise, and I've called the exercise Exploring Vibrato. Some of my other activities, you know, I've titled Developing Twang or Developing Belt or whole range, you know, and I use that word purposefully because we are purposefully developing that particular skill. With vibrato, I made sure I didn't use the word developing because I find that we can explore vibrato, but even, and I've mentioned this a number of times on the channel before, I've worked with thousands of singers over 26 years of teaching, and you know, despite the fact that I can see some singers really develop in their technique and become quite skilled with their singing, for whatever reason, vibrato does not seem to naturally onset into their sound, despite the fact that their mechanism. So what we used to teach, you know, if you go back 20, 30 years, and this is to a certain extent still the case, vibrato will onset into a voice that is relatively mechanically free. The funny thing about that is there are exceptions to this, because I have observed in wonderfully free voices a singer who's still not able to really create even vibrato. But interestingly, I've also observed singers that are really quite tight and have a lot of tension, and yet, hello, there's vibrato in that sound. So this all sort of lines back up with there's still a lot we don't quite know, and you know, there's two schools of thought. One is that it's all about breath flow. The other is that it's at a muscular level, and it's part of the ripple wave motion of the vocal folds. I'm given to thinking that it's probably a combination of both. More often than not, these things are all about, you know, the complexity of the things that are going on with the voice. Again, that's why it's such a hard instrument to develop. But anyway, so Daniel, you can certainly go and check out. I've got a video on the channel about it, and if you're really interested, maybe you already have Voice Essentials 3, spend some time working on the exercise called Developing Vibrato, and play with it. You know, it's a word that we don't use enough in our vocal exercising, and that is to play. You know, and again, I think play is more in keeping with process than product. I think more often the word we might find ourselves associating with product is perfection. We want the product to be perfect. Whereas if we play, there's no sense in which your process has to be perfect. You can just play in it, explore, and see what your voice comes out with. Mr. Human, Dr. Dan, could you please tell us in which order we should build our voice? I mean, chest first or head, agility first or something else? Look, this is a great question, Mr. Human. I'm just reading the rest of your question. It feels like I'm pushing my lungs out, but someone's turned my volume all the way down to 0. Part of the reason why you'll feel like your volume has been turned all the way down to 0 is because you're pushing your lungs out. Look, if you, Mr. Human, I would really encourage you to have a look at the Voice Essentials online courses. My developmental pathway that I've constructed. Now there are, I think it's 34, 35 modules over the full 3 courses. And it is structured in a very, methodical, systematic, brick upon brick, step by step process. It's not just, you know, I didn't just create 50 exercises, and some of them are age-old exercises. There's nothing new under the sun, right? And some of the exercises are ones that I was taught when I was, you know, a developing singer back in the 90s. I'm still a developing singer. What am I saying? But you get my point, right? Back when I was a student at university learning singing, I didn't just put 50 exercises together and throw it up and hope for, you know, to come all down the order. No, the Voice Essentials process is really intentional in stepping you through and building one skill upon the next, so that each time, and nothing gives me greater pleasure than to hear when I'm working with students one-on-one, and the student will at the very beginning of the lesson will say to me, I've got this question, and you go, okay, cool, what's the question? And they say, I'm really, that point between my chest voice and my head voice. And I say, oh yeah, the registrational transition. Yeah, it's really feeling really clunky and blah. And I go, well, guess what we're about to work on today? And not because I'm just, you know, smartly going, well, we'll work on that today. No, actually, that's the next exercises in the pathway that's been pre-built. And that just always affirms that the program that we've developed over many years actually leads your voice on a developmental pathway, and it happens all the time. In fact, it happened this morning in one of my lessons where the question from the student actually met exactly with where we were at, and I said, well, guess what, we're going to be working on that today, and we did, and away we go. So there you go. So that's what I'd encourage you to do, Mr. Human. Check out Voice Essentials. The first module is free. You can check it out, see if that learning process is for you. But like thousands before you, I think you'll find you get a lot out of it if you choose to engage with it. Adrian Salas has asked, is G4 high for a baritone? G4, we typically with the baritone, we would like, typically, we've got to be so careful when we start talking voice classification, because every voice is unique, every voice is different. And just because for one baritone, their G4 might be the top part of their range, for another baritone, it might be an A flat or an A4. So we kind of have to sort of be measured in how we kind of approach this. But you know, G4 is getting up there, Adrian. So you know, you certainly can. Hopefully that gives you some insights into that. Okay, M. Roxy. Wow, okay, the questions are getting awareness. Roxy, did you check Kishore Kumar? He's a legend of subcontinent. Please do a voice analysis of these. Yeah, Roxy, I did talk last week about the fact that going into the new year, and I haven't done any more thinking about this since we last talked, but I am thinking of doing a vocal analysis, some vocal analysis videos, not vocal reaction videos. I do not do vocal reaction videos. So it won't be me there, you know, oohing and ahhing, isn't, you know, it will, you know, I'm thinking of actually breaking it down and having a look at what choices is the singer making, and what can we learn from that. Anyway, I'm still thinking that through. So Roxy, I haven't looked at Kishore. I'm sure they're wonderful. You wouldn't be asking for me to do an analysis if you didn't really enjoy them. And who knows, maybe Kishore will be a part of that analysis when the time comes. But I haven't had a chance to. I am, you know, it's the year has started off with a vengeance. Wow, so busy. Happily busy, but busy nonetheless. Matt, long time Participant Matt. Question, I often hear my voice played back sounding weaker than it sounds in my ears. Is my voice weak, or is it just the quality of the recording device? Yes, Matt, it could be the quality of your recording device. However, it's more likely to be the resonance development of your voice. There's been quite a bit of research done into the fact that we as the singer hear our voice by virtue of bone conduction and the fact that we hear our voice, externally as well. There's been quite a bit of research done into showing just how differently we hear ourselves to other people, because when our voice leaves our body, it's the key missing element for your listener is bone conduction. They're for the most part hearing it directly through their ears externally, whereas we're hearing ours not only through bone conduction, but we also may get some tonal bleed, some resonance bleed up into our eustachian tube. So this creates a very unique listening experience for ourselves compared to our audience. The more we spend time with our voice, the more we hear our voice recorded and we critique and reflect, the more we can start to hear those two differences get closer together, so they're no longer foreign from one another, but they'll never be the same. They'll always be different. And so, Matt, it may well be that what you are interpreting internally within yourself for your sound is different tonally, and so therefore we need to then go looking at the vocal tract shapes. And in part, this is where working with a singing teacher one-on-one is really helpful, because the singing teacher in a private singing lesson, and this is why my online course, you'll love it if you do it, but there's no question that the gold standard of voice is all about the development of working with someone, working with a singing teacher where you're getting that immediate feedback, and really important to do that. I've just seen the Super King's super chat. Do you teach open throat technique? Can you explain what that means or works? Why does it say open throat? Isn't the throat open anyway? Yeah, this comes back to the age-old issue of terminology within singing. There is so many illustrative terminologies that have sort of found their way into the collective rhetoric of singing teaching, and open throat is one of them. Super King, I do have a video. In fact, if you on the channel type into the search on my channel in the videos section, if you type in open throat, there will be a video that will really go through that in quite a bit of detail for you. And it's funny because what we often perceive as being open throat, so for example, a lot of people think of the vowel ah that appears or feels to have quite a wide open shape to it, is actually a rather narrow position at the back of the throat. Opposite to that, if we create an an E vowel, it feels really narrow because our sensory awareness, particularly at the front of the mouth, will feel like it's rather narrow, and yet it's far wider at the back of the throat. And so our interpretation at a sensory level of what is open and what is closed often needs some refinement. I go into this, Super King, from memory in that video. So, for example, when I'm working with a student, and we do this as a part of the online courses, in the first couple of sessions, in the first couple of modules, I work with students having what I refer to as a neutral jaw. And I have people stick their little pinky into their mouth. Ya. Now you would think, well, that should be really, that should be really tight, right? Because there's this classic idea that singers sing with a big wide open mouth. And there is a place for a jaw position that is wider. But more often than not, beginner singers are quite surprised to learn that in fact their jaw doesn't need to be massively dropped in order to create really good tone. And that's because we're working more with the sense of shape and space, the pharyngeal wall, the soft palate, the position of the tongue, and that in turn gives us some insights into what is happening when it comes to whether the throat is open or not. Super King, I hope that's a good explanation for you. Thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate it. As the Super King knows, because he's given us super chats many times before, all of the funds that we get from the super chat are directed straight back into the channel, and we use that to keep developing, good shows for you, not just live but pre-recorded videos, etc. Okay, how are we going for time? One more question. No more super chats. Super King got one super chat in for today. I'm just going to answer one more question because I've got 3 more students to teach this afternoon, and I'm going to need a voice to do that. So come down here to Gazzotti. Oh wow, I'm looking down at how many questions there were. Sorry everyone, we just don't ever get to all of them. Gazzotti, Dr. Dan, is there any downside to use, even if performed correctly, high pressurized falsettos like used in heavy metal to reach more energized high notes? Gazzotti, the longer I teach, the more I'm given to saying there are no rights or wrongs when it comes. In that respect, I guess I'm a very postmodernistic teacher. There are no rights or wrongs. There are things that are more beneficial than others. There are things that we do with our voice that are more costly than others. There are things that, will downright damage your voice. But at the end of the day, it's actually not for me to tell you what you should or should not do with your voice. I can provide advice. I can educate you so that you understand what the outcomes of your choices are. But these days I generally stop short of saying good, bad, or indifferent. Now, so to suggest, to think about whether there's a downside to the use of the voice for high pressured falsettos, what we're looking for is to, again, and we've talked about this many times on the show, we're always looking to differentiate between PTF and PTP. So phonatory threshold pressure, which is that pressure that builds up underneath the vocal folds as the vocal folds oscillate, but in turn build pressure beneath them. And then PTF, which is the phonatory threshold flow, where the air has a continuance and a movement forward through the vocal tract. We're always looking to achieve really even PTF while we manage the PTP. Now, for there to be an increase in volume, there will be an increase in PTP, the pressure. The challenge is that I find that, particularly with beginner singers, that so-called pressure is being delivered through the larynx or underneath the vocal folds at significantly higher pressure levels than we would see as being optimal. And so more often than not, we are learning to back the pressure off whilst we maintain flow. And so it's all about, managing and getting the balance right, because when we're working with the balance of the voice, we're talking about the coordination of breath, of musculature, alignment, vocal tract shape, so many different things that are going on. This is why, you know, working on your voice technically, as we do so much here at Voice Essentials, is so important. Just singing more songs, more often than not, is not going to get you better results. You know, more often than not, just singing more songs will have you repeating the same mistakes that your voice has just learnt to repeat. You've got to kind of interrupt your automation and teach the voice new skills. But to rewire those neural pathways, you kind of got to interject, disrupt your brain's automation and teach it a new way to do certain tasks. And that's what Voice Essentials is all about. So there you go. The first Q&A for 2021. How do the rest of you feel about saying 2021? One of the great things about 2020 was simply how easy it was to say. And now we've got to add the extra syllable. 2021. Got to put that one on the end. Anyway, we're going to be saying it for the next 11 months. And you'll hear me say it many more times here on the channel, because we're going to be doing this every week, every Monday, 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Hey, if you enjoyed today's show, hit the thumbs up button and let me know. Next week, we've got Michelle Marquardt DeVoe from Speakeasy Cooperative coming on. She's a blast. We have a lot of fun. We really have a lot of fun when Michelle's on the show. So I hope you'll join in and you'll jump over with me and spend the 50 minutes that Michelle will be with us. And look, I hope you all have a great week. I know many of you are still in your Sunday. Time for you to go to bed if that's the case. And I hope you have a great week. I hope you have a safe week. And I very much look forward to seeing you all again next week, when you'll always hear me say, I'm Dr. Dan. Sing well.